Hello, Simone Matthew from Push Past 10 here, bringing you another audio article. So, this one is entitled Murder in Paradise: The Killing of a VFX Legend. So, this is the story of the two entrepreneurs who were killed in Dominica at the end of 2023. Now, this particular audio article is a little bit lengthy, so I want you to take some time, maybe while you're driving to work, maybe while you're commuting on the bus or the train. This would be a great time to listen to this because we need to remember the full story of what occurred, and we also need to keep in mind that justice is required for those who committed this atrocity. So, this article is from HollywoodReporter.com. So, again, HollywoodReporter.com, and it is entitled Murder in Paradise: The Killing of a VFX Legend. On the tropical island of Dominica, the ultra wealthy Oscar winning CGI pioneer Daniel Langlois was seen as a force for good. So, why were he and his partner shot and burned beyond recognition? So, this article is written by Nina Berlier, and it is dated May 7th, 2024. And it reads: Deep in the lush mountains of the Caribbean island of Dominica, amid stands of lemongrass, giant ferns, and palms, three roads converge where two lives ended violently. A few weeks before Christmas, the bodies of Daniel Langlois, a French Canadian philanthropist and Hollywood animation centimillionaire, and his partner, Dominique Mochard, were found at that spot in a car halfway into a ravine, burned beyond recognition. Even though the bodies were charred, investigators could tell they had been shot first. The official and still evolving story of their murders is a classic tale of good versus evil, set in a steamy jungle. Like other expats who live in Dominica, Langlois and Machad, who bought their property in the late 1990s, were attracted to the island's wild, endemic quality. Its waterfalls, volcanic hot pools, and deep green forests were spectacular blossoms northerners would see only in florist shops grow like weeds. But the dead couple had become heroes to many on this tiny, impoverished island of 72,000. They were widely admired philanthropists and environmentalists. A few weeks before Langlois was murdered, the government had awarded him its highest civilian honor for his philanthropic work. For decades, the couple lavished their wealth on the community, spending $1 million just to rebuild the local school destroyed in a Category 5 hurricane, designing resiliency projects and building infrastructure like a jetty, pouring money into a marine reserve, and the island's stray dog and cat rescue program, as well as countless private disbursements to individuals in the nearby village who needed health care and other assistance. Langlois, 66, was a computer animation pioneer and the Academy Award winning Sci Fi Tech 1997, who worked with Steven Spielberg on Jurassic Park and other major filmmakers before selling his company, Soft Image, to Microsoft in 1994 for $200 million. His 3D tool has been used in numerous big budget hits, including the Harry Potter series, Star Wars, prequels, and Titanic. He was influential in early innovations of CGI, particularly as the tech related to human characters and expressions. After selling Soft Image, he founded the Daniel Langlois Foundation in 1997 to promote collaboration and exchanges between the arts and science, and was a major investor and promoter in Montreal film community. In Dominica, Langlois spent years designing and building a dream project, an off-the-grid model structure deep in the mountains that eventually became a luxury resort he called Colibri Ridge. It opened in late 2022 and made Condé Nast's Travelers 2023 hot list. Travel and Leisure called it the world's greenest resort. A few days after Langlois and Machad's remains were found in the ravine several miles from their home, police arrested couple's next door neighbor, Jonathan Lira, an American with survivalist tendencies, and a Florida man, Robert Snyder, whom police claimed he hired as a hitman. Police say that the Americans shot the Canadian couple, then set their car on fire with an accelerant that burned so fiercely. Snyder reportedly had burns on his hands and legs when he was arrested. Langlois and Lira were both North American expats with money who migrated down to the tropics. But they were improbable neighbors. A progressive Canadian who built a green resort where rich, eco-minded guests paid at least $700 a night, and a reported prepper who turned his plantation into a safe haven for himself and advertised it to other disaster-fearing survivalists. Lira and his wife arrived in 2021 with enough wealth to buy the island's oldest still intact former coffee and cocoa plantation, the Bois Colliette Estate, which borders Langlois' land. Lira upgraded the 53-acre 18th century grounds into a tourist destination, financed by busloads of cruise ship passengers paying to visit his small exhibition on cocoa processing. The beans were turned into bricks of chocolate that would be sent to Trinidad, which would be sent to Trinidad and made edible, according to a former employee. Lira has been called a chocolatier in news articles, but he and his wife were not making or selling chocolate. They were running bus tours for cruise ship passengers through their old plantation. They soon became notorious on the island as all-American private property cranks. The dirt road from the coast into the mountains, where the eco-resort is located, passed through their property. Dominicans had been Dominicans had been using it since the days of slavery, but the American couple tried to unofficially privatize it. As early as 2016, the road was in dispute, and soon the conflict went to court. As Langlois built his eco-lodge, Lira would reportedly block the road with stones and tree trunks. Colibri Ridge employees routinely videotaped these contentious interactions with Lira and have since posted some online. A judge granted an injunction in 2019 keeping the road public and allowing Langlois guests and workers to access it, explicitly calling it Mount Rouge Public Road. But non paying tourists were shooed off. TripAdvisor comments about the chocolate plantation are filled with warnings about leaders claiming they set large dogs on passing hikers and threatened drivers who found themselves on the road. On a recent visit to Dominica, I drove the disputed route. In its narrow, unimproved with depth, tire-stuck-in routes, and too rough for anything but a four-wheel drive or truck. It does pass through the old plantation's ruins, close enough to reach from the car window at one tight turn and touch the stone walls of the old plantation's warehouse and mills. On the edge of a steep green ravine, less than a mile away, mourners have left a shrine of purple flowers in vases and the melting numbs of two candles at the crime scene. The fire was so hot that it melted remains of the victim's black SUV embedded in the dirt. The issue of the public road just kept getting worse, one longtime Langlois employee told me. Mostly it was Jonathan. Every time we had a shipment go through the property, we videotaped because he was Jonathan. Golden passports and a bunker. Major crime is rare on the island. The police force is ill-equipped to do basic forensics and has reportedly had to send the remains to labs in the US or Canada and ask the Royal Canadian Mounted Police to assist in the investigation into Langlois' death. Meanwhile, inhabitants of the nearby hamlet of Soufriere have been open about their intent to do vigilante justice if Lyra is released. Lyra and Snyder, a Florida mechanic, Lyra employed to work on his tour buses, are both in the national prison called Stock Farm, outside the capital city of Roseau. They have not yet been required to enter a plea, but their lawyers say they plan to plead not guilty. Lyra's wife, who has not been charged, has left the island and hired a Texas PR firm. Lyra recently applied for bail after 5 months incarceration in the severely overcrowded prison. His request was rejected. The bail denial included mention of an eyewitness to the crime, a Dominican native who Lyra's legal team says worked on his property as a manager. If Lyra is convicted, he will be subject to the Dominica penalty for murder, execution by hanging. Islanders I spoke with generally accept the road rage motive, but there are other aspects of the story that deepen the mystery, going beyond a simple road dispute. The two wealthy white North Americans, Langlois and Lyra, were avatars of two opposing sides of the island conflict that pits environmentalists and activists against a cabal of outside interests pressing for more access to natural resources, and a government accused of corruption in caving to those interests. Dominica is mountainous, volcanic, and directly in the hurricane path, not a magnet for high-end resort investments. The island has been ravaged by countless tempests. Its relatively thin, tiny, and poor population depends on tourism, cruise ship docks daily, fishing, small family farms, or work on sporadic developments, many financed by Chinese and Russian investors. The island has for years subsisted, let's take that again. The island has for years subsisted largely on income from so called golden passports, proceeds of which constitute about half of the government's revenues. Because Dominica is in the Commonwealth, its passport holders can get into the Schengen region, the EU, without visas, even post Brexit. Dominica sells passports starting at $100,000. The program called Citizen by Investment requires investors to put that money into real estate, a project of which Lyra's was one, or a government bond. The program has no residency or language requirement. Investigative journalists have separately accused some island officials of selling diplomatic passports, which the officials denied. The businesses it is reportedly corrupt. The business is reportedly corrupt, with investigative journalists finding that passports have gone to international criminals, money launderers, crypto scammers. One 2019 Al Jazeera investigation revealed longtime President Roosevelt Skerritt allegedly took hundreds of thousands of dollars for his 2014 election campaign from an Iranian businessman called Ali Reza Monfared in exchange for making him the Dominican ambassador to Malaysia. Monfared was eventually arrested by his own government and sentenced to 20 years imprisonment. Skerritt, who has called the allegations totally false, has been re-elected 4 times in sometimes tense election cycles involving riots and accusations of graft. His administration maintains close ties with China and has invested heavily in infrastructure on the island, including a controversial new airport that is under construction, plus post-hurricane housing for displaced islanders. After a consortium of investigative journalists collaborated on a 2023 expose into the passport scheme, Skerritt blasted them as terrorists and accused them of being financed by the political opposition. The Golden Visa program has brought $1 billion into the government's coffers since its inception and reportedly constitutes 55% of the national income. The Dominican government calls the program Citizen by Investment, CBI, and deputizes various investors and other individuals around the islands as agents. Lyra was one of the 8 CBI agents on the island, a position that allowed him to vet passport applicants and gave him access to top government officials, as well as sell off bits of his own vast property through the program. Lyra's attorney in the murder case is Lennox Lawrence, a close associate of Skerritt and a former acting attorney general on the island. Lyra's closeness to the government And the challenge the case presents, an under equipped police force, has prompted observers in Dominica to worry that the authorities will not be able to make charges stick. The government has brought in a special prosecutor from Trinidad to handle the case and reportedly asked the Canadian assistance with the investigation, although Canadian officials have not confirmed their involvement. The Prime Minister and the Tourism Minister seem to have a good relationship with this guy. Dominican radio host Matt Peltier recently said to Canadian TV, there is a lot of concern whether this couple will actually get justice. Reached by Zoom, Lawrence said the fact that he served as Attorney General for a period does not give us an advantage because Dominica has separation of powers between the judicial and executive branches. He declined to comment on the business aspect of the relationship between Lira and the passport program, saying he was not well informed on the subject. Both Langlois and Lira would have been eligible for the CBI program, given the amount of money they invested in the country. It's not clear whether Langlois was involved in it. Lira was an agent, most certainly was. Lira is often described in news reports about the crime as an American businessman, but the nature of his business is unclear. According to the Texas-based publicist Nicolia Wills, hired by Lira's wife, Lira worked for MetLife until 2017 and also made money on investments before turning the plantation into a tour business. His name is in the Pandora Papers, a list of offshore companies that provide shell companies in tax havens for people trying to hide assets. In the Pandora database, Lira is connected to an address in Tortola that links to 1,800 offshore companies. Lira's spokesperson said he set up that account to do a commodity trading and has since closed it. Lira, 57, had over the years lived in Chicago, Staten Island, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, and most recently owned a home in Winter Harbor, Maine. Records show a few criminal charges, including a weapons charge and a serious vehicular violation in the 1980s. A family member told me that Lira was an investor, although the relative didn't know what Lira might have invested in, and that he left the US after Barack Obama was elected president because he thought the country was going to hell. When Lira, his wife, and 4 teenage kids first moved to the island, they lived in a yacht and set up solar power for the property. He was, a family member said, obsessed with post-apocalyptic survival, kind of a prepper. Lira's spokesperson denies this. None of his children, who are college age and older, are believed to have been on the island at the time of the murders. He wanted to be more self-contained, off the power grid, have autonomy, take care of himself, the relative said. That family member added that Lira was definitely the kind of guy who would not want people invading his land. He liked to be left alone. With Lyra in jail awaiting trial, the Bois Colette website still touts the plantation as a tourist destination and a real estate investment. Why Colibri? Freedom. The site advertises the CBI program and the benefits of investing with Lyra and provides a step by step instruction. It also explicitly targets people worried about disasters and global instability. One page titled Assurance Options for a World of Uncertainty offers a prepper's option. Emergency survival preparedness. Relatively based emergency preparedness for a society infrastructure that is alive and well. This stopgap coverage helps you to wait out short to medium duration life disturbances while you plan. It also offers a safe haven option, advertised as follows. Enjoy 3, 6, or 9 months of safe haven living at Bois Colette if a defined event occurs in your region of the world, the site says. Whether society is disrupted as a result of economic or political turmoil, a prolonged natural disaster, or another possible scenario, Bois Colette defines preparedness and is the best hinged against crisis in our complex world. Bois Colette is also your home and sanctuary for everyday living. One problem: the safe haven bordered a progressive Canadian multimillionaires award-winning resort. Luxury SUVs daily delivered well-heeled guests, bumping and bouncing on the road through the estate and over the mysterious and underground bunker Lyra had constructed, without even stopping for a chocolate tour. An evidentiary hearing schedule for March 15th was cancelled, with the government claiming that Snyder had COVID and couldn't be brought to court. As such, it is difficult to assess just what evidence the government has against Lyra and Snyder. A German tourist who spoke to Canadian W5 television, identified in the report only as Thomas, said he was hiking the road through Bois Colette toward Colibri Ridge on the day the couple were murdered, when a man ordered him to turn back. He said that as he walked away, he heard shots, and a short time later, he heard explosions and saw black smoke, possibly from the burning SUV. The German tourist told the Canadian reporters that police took him back to the scene of the crime, and sitting behind him in the police bus was Snyder handcuffed to Lyra. The hiker identified Snyder to police as the man he encountered in the road that day, and later told the Canadian journalist that he saw heavy burning, damage on Snyder's arm in the prison van, and he didn't have his injury when I met him on the trail. Lyra's lawyer said that based on his firm's investigation, the tourist could not identify Jonathan Lyra at all. Snyder's lawyer has not responded to several requests for comment. Lyra and Snyder were taken to the National Prison at Stockholm within days of the murders. Photos showed both men appearing to smirk as they walked from the van, handcuffed together, surrounded by angry island residents shouting at them. A week later, Canadian newspaper reporters who were dispatched to the island to investigate the murder witnessed Lira back at his property for a few hours. Police told reporters the curious home visit was part of an unrelated investigation. The status of the investigation is unclear. Initially scheduled for March, the evidentiary hearing has been rescheduled for July. And if that date is met, a trial could come as early as September. Meanwhile, the island is rife with rumors, including that Lyra employee who witnessed the murders is being held or hidden for his or her safety. Lyra's spokesman says the person has disappeared from the island since August. One intriguing leak, a video believed to have been taken by the police of a labyrinth under bunker beneath the Bois Colette estate, large enough to hold at least two cargo containers whose contents and purpose are a mystery. Lyra's spokesman claimed that the bunker is just a large cold storage cellar Lyra copied from one he had seen in California wine country. Whilst the Lyra's publicist also says Snyder was no hitman, but rather a mechanic who had come to the island to perform maintenance on Lyra's tour buses. Lyra from jail is still pressing his case to declare the road private. According to his spokesman, he had expected to be awarded millions in punitive damages for Langlois before the couple died. The fate of that lawsuit remains unclear since the murders. Wiles also suggested the couple might have simply disappeared. One of the Lyra's defenses apparently will be that there is no forensic proof Langlois and Machad are in fact dead, since the bodies were recovered were not identifiable. Wiles even insinuated that as an acclaimed pioneer of Hollywood VFX, Langlois might have faked his own death. Langlois' entire business was built around making things look real that are not, Wiles says. Is it far-fetched? Yeah, we're certainly not saying that's what we believe happened, but Wiles further floated the possibility that Langlois had something in his history that made him a target of the mafia or drug cartel. Police found a load of cocaine in the jungle near the Colibri Ridge property in 2018, which a former employee told me prompted Langlois to start patrolling his own property with drones to fend off criminals. Whatever was going on between the two rich men, the murder investigation presents a profound, perhaps insurmountable challenge for the penurious tropical police force. When I met him at his office in the small, weather-beaten National Police Headquarters, Island Police Chief Davidson Valerie declined to comment on a witness or the bunker, saying that the evidence would be revealed at the first hearing. Meanwhile, Lyra's spokesman and lawyers have organized and disseminated to American and Canadian media reams of documents purporting to show that the road dispute was no murder motive. Langlois' family and Colibri Ridge staff declined to comment publicly. A close friend of Langlois on the island said the Canadians' associates were still too shocked to talk about the murders. Canadian IT businessman Marc Petit was a close friend of Langlois. There was something genuinely good about Daniel. When you compare the context and a worldview obsessed with trespassing on terrain, it just doesn't add up, he told me on a call from Montreal. There is something that's incredible. Sam Raphael, a hotelier and native Dominica who built his own luxury resort, Jungle Bay, with CBI investment money, Ralph knew Langlois, his partner, and Lyra. He doesn't think the murder had anything to do with the golden passports or other crimes. The courts revealed that you cannot do anything to impede traversing on this road, whether it's shown on your map or not. Buddy, it's public road. That should have been the end of that. But he couldn't let it go. Thus ends the article. So I think that paints a very broad picture of what is going on, what happened, the history behind this particular unfortunate incident in Dominica. And I think we are quite amazed at the defense that will be presented in this case. So again, another audio article presented to you from Simone Matthew at Push Past 10. Don't forget to share this information so that we can all have the full story, and we eagerly anticipate the next step as we seek justice for the people who met their untimely demise in this particular case. So don't forget, follow Push Past 10. Don't forget to share this information, and we will be back with you very shortly as we continue to work on ways to advance Dominica, but we also continue to share our concerns of what is going on in Dominica. So until then, you take care.